he's did a very good job of impersonating a monetary dove, meaning someone who will do Trump's bidding, will lower interest rates in order to give Trump what he wants.
Turning to the US economy, Donald Trump has finally had his way, and he's going to replace Jerome Powell, the current chair of the US Federal Reserve, who has long fought the president over lowering interest rates. The new nominated chair is Kevin Warsh, widely seen as a steady hand, and he's also, of course, an ex-Fed governor. The president says that Warsh will bring strong, sound and steady leadership, or will he be simply the yes man that the White House is looking for? Let's get the views of Jared Bernstein. He was the chair of Joe Biden's Council of Economic Advisors, previously the chief economist to President Biden. Hello to you.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
First of all, how significant do you think these changes are at the Federal Reserve going to be?
Well, in a way, they're less significant than everybody is saying. Of course, the chair of the Federal Reserve operates like a chief economist for not just the US economy, but in some ways the global economy. So obviously, it's a very important position. But when it comes to interest rates, setting the rate, that's the most important thing that the Fed does every 6 weeks. The chair is one of 12 votes. So even though Kevin Warsh is known as pretty hawkish, pretty hard money guy, meaning he tends to prefer higher relative to lower interest rates, he's still but one vote. So certainly an important position, but maybe somewhat overemphasized if you recognize that he only has one vote.
So is the appointment of someone who, as I say, is regarded as a safe pair of hands and small c conservative on these matters, is that a sign of Donald Trump really losing his own personal prejudices?
No, it's a sign of the White House not reading what Kevin Warsh has written. He's did a very good job of impersonating a monetary dove, meaning someone who will do Trump's bidding, will lower interest rates in order to give Trump what he wants. And I'm sure he's going to have to do some of that, especially out of the gate, to please his boss, or at least to please the guy who nominated him. But he does, and I think your comments suggested this, he does have a real strain of independence for the Fed, and that's critically important. So I think he's going to ultimately try to keep the Fed out of politics. I think the problem for Trump is that, as I said, Kevin Warsh wants to see a smaller Federal Reserve, one that's less involved in helping the federal government engage in expansionary fiscal policy. He's more of a high than a low interest rate guy. He's more worried about inflation than employment. So it's a weird pick from Trump's perspective, and I think they didn't do a very good job of vetting.
Now, Donald Trump, every time he speaks at length, he praises the state of the American economy. And it has to be said, compared to Europe, the growth rate is very impressive at the moment. So how well is the economy doing?
From a macro perspective, growth rate, productivity, I mean, unemployment has come up actually a full point from where it was a few years ago, but it's still relatively low. Real wages are rising. Inflation's a bit elevated, but put that all together, put that in the blender, and you get a good macro economy. The problem is that a lot of people aren't feeling it. That's been the case for a while, and there's reasons for that. If you look at consumer spending, for example, it seems to be juiced pretty significantly by the strong stock market. We call that a wealth effect. And so that's kind of a high-end economy doing well, while middle and low-end economy not so well. So as usual with the U.S. economy, I'm sure there's elements of this in the U.K. as well, it's not a simple story. I guess if you wanted to put it to one sentence, you'd say good macro, not so great micro.
But the dollar is down, isn't it? Which some are certainly saying could be a good opportunity for the UK, for example.
Yes and no. I mean, I think the point about the dollar from the UK perspective, which, the pound to the dollar recently hit something like a 5-year high, that could be helpful on the inflation front. And I know inflation's been a bit elevated there, well north of 3%. But, you export 30% of your GDP. That's way more than we do. And so having a stronger currency, or at least relative to the dollar, can hurt you on that front. So, the dollar is always the pound in this case is always a double-edged sword. So, yeah, probably helpful with inflation, less helpful with exports.
So finally, and I know you're an economist, not a politician, but overall, looking at the state of the economy, what impact do you think it's likely to have on the midterm elections?
Well, even though remember I said good macro, bad micro. Well, who votes? Micro people. I mean, humans, people vote. And so people don't eat GDP, they don't eat productivity. GDP doesn't pay their rent. Americans are very unhappy with affordability issues, and that's one of the reasons you have this split between the strong macro economy and people's negative sentiments. That's likely to hurt the Republicans and Trump in the midterms if it persists by that time, which I suspect it will. There's already an anti-incumbency bias with any midterm, and I think these tough micro dynamics amplify that.